Hello. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. Just want to say welcome and thank you all for being here and for showing up for my launch for my YouTube channel. So I can see that people are here, but I can't see who is here. And I also just want to make sure you can hear me okay. So if you can, over in the chat box, which should be on the right side of your screen, if you can give me a thumbs up emoji or a hello, that would be awesome, just to let me know that you can hear me, and that we're good. I want to make sure that that everybody can hear me okay. Maybe you can't hear me. Oh, I got a thumbs up. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't want to keep talking and rambling if you weren't hearing anything I was saying. So thank you for the thumbs up. And again, thank you all so much for showing up. I know everybody's busy. I know this is your lunchtime. So thank you for showing up and for being here. And thank you so much, everybody who subscribed to the channel before it even launched. When I checked a little bit ago, it was up to, I think, 93, which is amazing. So thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate that. Before I dive too much more into things, I just wanted to give a little bit of housekeeping info. So again, like I said, I can see that people are here, but it's helpful, that people have kind of chimed in on the chat because I can't really see who all is here otherwise. So that's really helpful. And if you have a question or if something goes wonky with the technology, just put something in the chat so I know. And the plan is I'm going to spend a little bit of time chatting about the inspiration for the channel and what the focus of the channel is going to be. And then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A and then some giveaways. So I'm really excited about all of that. And I'm excited that you're here. So the first thing in thinking about the inspiration for the channel, why the heck did I take this on? First and foremost, because I'm an educator at heart. I always have been. I probably always will be. I've always either done training or, found some way to be an educator in pretty much anything I've done. And I've actually been an educator. I've taught for over a decade in higher education. So that's always been a part of me, at the heart. I've always been an educator. And I view YouTube as another classroom. It's another platform, a way to share and educate. And as I've talked with leaders really across the country, and even in my own experience, I've seen that there's a lack of professional development opportunities out there for leaders. People are really good at their job and they get promoted, but then they're often not given additional tools to lead. We think that because people are really good at what they do, they're going to be great leaders or managers, but that's a very different skill set that's required to lead. And often we don't give people those tools. There's not those opportunities to learn. And I've learned a lot over the last 20 years, both in terms of my own hits and misses and successes and failures. I've learned a lot. I read a lot, and just really had a lot of opportunity to gain some amazing experience. And I wanted to share that with people. I wanted to share things that I've learned through reading and education. And also, like I said, some of my lessons learned from things that I've done that have worked well, and maybe some of the things that I did that didn't work so well and I learned from. And so this is really, like I said, I view this as a classroom, an extension to be an educator, and also to help fill that void. As I said, knowing that there's really not a whole lot of professional development opportunities that are easily accessible for people out there, either who already are leaders or who are aspiring to be leaders. And so I wanted to help fill that gap. And then in thinking about really the focus of the channel, focusing on communication. And the big reason for that is, again, as I talk to leaders, unanimously, what they say, they feel the need, the skill that they want to work on the most is communication. Time and again, whether it is feeling more confident in their communication, wanting more confidence in being able to have difficult conversations, thinking about feedback, really just so many facets of communication that's the skill and that's an area that they really want to focus on and improve. And it makes sense, right? Communication really enters everything we do. And, if we think about uh, how much of an impact communication can have on our experience, on our well-being, our satisfaction, both in a positive and a negative light. If you think about real communication, without real communication, our teams can't thrive. If you are in an environment where you are feeling excluded, you're feeling like you aren't being communicated with, or maybe the communication that's happening is not positive, and just overall there's not that positive vibe, that's really where your energy is going to go. You're going to worry about, why aren't you being included? You're going to worry about, well, why did that negative thing happen? Or why is that person being a jerk to me? All that negative communication or lack of communication is going to become your experience and your area of focus. And that's where your energy is going to go. But conversely, if you have an environment with positive communication, inclusive communication, you have leaders and team members that are really working well together and communicating well, and there's just that sense of honest and open feedback and communication, your energy is going to be freed up to be creative, to produce things. It really does influence your whole experience, the dynamic of communication within your team, and really within all of your relationships. The focus of this channel, the lens, is really going to be on communication in the workplace. But ultimately, these concepts can be applied in every facet of our life. I mean, communication is really something that enters every facet of our lives. At home, friends, work, parents, being a parent, it all comes down to communication. And so while the focus and the lens will be talking about communication in the workplace, really the vision is that you'll be able to take the things that are covered on this channel and apply them everywhere, because really we should be seeking feedback and having positive communication with all of our relationships, not just at work. And to give you a little more information about the format of the channel, so there will be new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So today, the launch, is our first Tuesday episode, and I do have a pre-recorded video that is scheduled to be released on Friday. And then every Tuesday and Friday from here on out, there will be new video content. And again, the big focus is going to be on obviously, as I said, communication, but also with a lens on feedback. I really want to help take the fear out of feedback. I want people to get comfortable having those difficult conversations. They're still going to be, by some nature, a little bit uncomfortable, but if we can become more comfortable with having those difficult conversations, if I can help give you some of those tools and strategies to be able to do that in a more confident manner, that's really the goal. And that's going to be the main focus of the channel. And I really do want to push us all out of our comfort zone to have those difficult conversations. Because again, it is so important, and it's easy to avoid those difficult conversations. Well, we think it's easy to avoid those difficult conversations, but really in the end, it just becomes more difficult and more uncomfortable the more we avoid that. So the goal of the channel is really to push us all out of our comfort zone, to have more frequent and better communication. And that kind of leads me to segue into why I chose the name or the concept of courageous leadership and helping you be a courageous leader. I was very intentional in choosing that word, courage or courageous, and for a couple reasons. One, the definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. And we may not tend to think about putting off those difficult conversations that we're frightened. But ultimately, if we really peel it back, that's what it is. We're afraid. We're a little bit frightened of both receiving feedback and giving feedback, and just difficult conversations. And even maybe it's not a difficult conversation, but just taking the effort to communicate. We're often frightened of that. And so the idea of courageous leadership is, taking that courage to step out of the comfort zone and do it, even though it might frighten you. But I also really like the idea of courage when it comes to leadership, because the root word for courage is core, which is the Latin word for heart. And I know it can seem a little, I don't know, to think about leading with our heart. That can sound, some people might think that sounds a little soft, or that might sound, I don't know, not something we really like to think about. We like to think of being leaders, or we have to be stiff and maybe formal. But I really think that effective leaders are those that are authentic, and those that do lead with their heart, and they're not afraid to be vulnerable. And so I really love the idea of that the root word is core, or heart, and leading with your heart. And that's not about being soft, and that's not about being, not wishy-washy, but, being weak. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think being willing to demonstrate vulnerability is actually a sign of strength, and that is strong. And courage is about being brave. And so this tendency to think that as a leader we can't be vulnerable, I think is really misguided. And I think being willing to lead from that place of courage and our heart, and being authentic, is really where the good stuff happens. That's where people learn to trust you. They learn to respect you. They know that you are somebody that they can go to. And so that's why the idea of being a courageous leader and courageous leadership. So let me just look at my notes here, make sure I'm not getting too far and I'm not forgetting something or getting too far off track. And I don't think I am. So, okay. So my goal is, I can't remember if I said this in the beginning or not, this would, we'd be done by about 12:30. This would be a half hour. With that in mind, I'd like to move into a couple minutes of question and answer. So if you have a question, if about either the channel or courageous leadership or leadership in general, or if you don't have a general question, is there something that you feel is a challenge either for you, like you feel that it's a leadership challenge that you experience, or maybe something that as you have worked with people that you've seen that it's you see that challenge from leaders within your organization or your bosses, maybe something that you've noticed. So if you have a question or your biggest challenge or your concern, what's something that comes to mind? Okay, so we have, what if I'm not a top leader or manager in my organization? How can I promote this feedback culture? Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's one actually, so I do a free training, a free webinar, usually each week, and on the 4 steps to cultivating feedback. And that was a question that came up when we did the training recently, was the idea of, okay, so what do? You want to help cultivate that culture, but you're not the top boss, you're not the top leader, or one of them. So what do you do? And I, in thinking about that question, and my advice was thinking about your sphere of influence. So think about one, what can you do to role model that positive communication and feedback? And if you can yourself, to the best that you can, role model that willingness to receive feedback, to give feedback to the extent that you can. And also just think about the team members around you and your sphere of influence. What can you do to help cultivate that? It is hard if you have leaders either that aren't on board, or maybe adversely just really aren't, maybe they're not even just not on board. They're really not going to help promote that culture. That is difficult. So I recommend to people to, again, focus on their sphere of influence, think about their immediate people around them and what they can do and how they can role model that behavior to the best that they can. And ultimately, I think people will start to see that, and hopefully that will have a ripple effect, and you can start to see some of that change. But yeah, it's a difficult situation, and it's a very fair question. And now I'm going to have to probably put on my readers because this chat is very small. So communication is more challenging than ever with the recent shift to remote work. Given this reality, how can we effectively check in with team members? Yeah, it's interesting that, in the last couple months, a lot of places that didn't have remote teams or remote work with this lovely global pandemic, have been forced into this situation. And so communication is something that we need to be intentional about anyway, every day, but especially, when in this shift, thinking about how can you be intentional about really communicating with your team. And I think, and I did post a blog post about this, I think it was last week, thinking about the questions you should be asking your team. And I think that's outside of saying that, yes, take advantage of email and text and phone and video conferencing and all the technology that we have at our fingertips now to help facilitate that dialogue. And yes, we should be keeping team members updated. So give them updates, keep them informed, share information. But I think one of the biggest things that we can do as leaders right now, in addition to giving information, is making sure that we're soliciting and receiving information. I think it's very tempting for leaders to just churn out updates and send that information out, and not always be intentional and take the time to really check in with team members and say, how are you doing? What challenges are you facing right now? Are there things that I could do for you? Is there something I could do or something that I could take away that would help you right now, would help you be more successful? Really taking the time and being intentional about asking your team members how they're doing. And so when you check in, it's not just all right, are you busy enough? Are you producing enough? But really checking on them as a person. And that's really critical right now. But I don't think that should end once things return back to whatever new normal they're returning to. I think we still need to be intentional about really checking in with people that way as well. What's one of the most common mistakes you see leaders make? I would say, thinking about that, I think one of the most common mistakes is, getting back to this idea of not wanting to appear vulnerable and not being willing to say, I don't know. I think often leaders feel like they need to have all the answers. You're put in this leadership position, you're a supervisor or a manager or some type of leader, and you feel this pressure to have all the answers. And if I don't have all the answers, then people are going to think I don't know what I'm doing and why am I in this position? And I think a lot of that imposter syndrome, takes over. But again, just like I feel that it's more courageous to be vulnerable in being willing to receive feedback, I think it's more courageous in demonstrating vulnerability in a willingness to say, I don't know. Let's figure this out together, or I'll find out for you, or whatever the case may be. But this fear of being afraid to say, I don't know, or show vulnerability, we tend to think of that as a sign as a weakness. But I think people are going to trust you a lot more if you're willing to say when you don't know something than if you sort of know and you pretend you know, and you maybe know 20% and you make the other 80% up. people are eventually going to figure that out, and then you're going to lose that credibility and that trust. And so it's much better to just admit from the get-go that how much you don't know, and being willing to learn and grow. It not only helps establish that trust, but it's a good example for your team as well, that it's okay for them to not know and to find something out. Our agency doesn't currently have a feedback culture, so what do you recommend as first steps, like how to get started? So one of the things that I talk about a lot in cultivating a feedback culture is that absolutely step one has to be making sure there's a safe space. That is crucial. If you don't have a safe space, if people don't feel safe being open and honest, you're not going to get real feedback. And that absolutely has to be step one. And you need to really take stock of what is the dynamic in your team, and whether that is a safe space for one-on-one conversation. Maybe you have a very good rapport with one team member, and yes, they feel safe coming to you, but does the team as a whole, do they feel comfortable receiving feedback from you? Do they feel safe giving you feedback? And as a team, do they feel safe? I think we can all relate. I know I've been there, and you can give me a thumbs up in the chat if you've been there as well, where you really just didn't feel safe. You had some good feedback that you wanted to provide, and you just really didn't feel safe. And so you know what that's like. And so if you're a leader and you look at the dynamic in your team, and people aren't coming to you, or they're not sharing with each other, that should really be the first thing you think about is, do we have a safe space? Do people feel like they can come to me? And as you're looking to promote that and cultivate that, make sure you set that stage, or create that safe space. And one of the things we talk about in that training I do is setting the stage, is doing activities to make sure you have a safe space. And so there are ways to do that. I know right now I'm just staying very high level and saying to make sure there's a safe space, but in some of the stuff that I have on the consulting website and in the training that we do, we actually do talk about how to do that, how to create a safe space. And yeah, imposter syndrome is a real issue for sure. Absolutely. And let me see. What is the best way to deal with receiving feedback? Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? It's one thing to get really comfortable with having difficult conversations and giving feedback. I think that still is a skill that takes a lot of practice, and it's never truly easy. It gets easier, but it's a whole other ballgame to receive feedback. Like that's tricky. So my biggest piece of advice is to, when you're receiving feedback, resist the urge to respond immediately. So when you're talking with somebody and they're giving you feedback, it is very tempting to fire back with a response right away and say, oh, that's not what I meant, or you don't understand, or, give some other justification or excuse or clarifying statement. And you need to resist that urge. And when somebody's giving you feedback, just listen and receive it. And you can acknowledge it, but don't feel the need to fire back with a response right away. You're better off just thanking them for giving you the information, even if you don't agree with it, and taking some time to process. And actually, the video that I have recorded for Friday is a lot more information about how to receive and process feedback. So I actually give you the 3 steps to do it, and give you a link to a guide on how to process the feedback after you receive it. But for the sake of time right now, I would say the biggest thing is just resist that urge to fire back with a response right away, and just listen, hear them out, and then take some time to process before giving a response. That would be the biggest thing to receiving feedback. Yeah, exactly. If people are not comfortable with a safe space, you're not going to get the true feedback. That's absolutely right, and that's ultimately what we want, right? Okay, so we have about 5-ish minutes left. Again, I want to be sensitive to people's time. So before we get to the giveaways, and I know I said in the promo that we were going to have 2, but I actually have 3. So before we get into that, I want to just mention something really quick that I'm very, very excited about. Again, in the realm of professional development opportunities, this is going to be a space where people can access what I think are good ideas and strategies and leadership tips for free. And I'm really excited to do that, to have this platform. But I also recognize that people may want a more formal structure and an opportunity and something that they can have more tangible curriculum and takeaways. And so really excited that I'm launching the Courageous Leaders Academy. That's going to launch next week. It's a 6-week online program, and it's going to delve into a lot of the things that we talked about today, but so much more. And one of the other things that I've heard a lot from people when they talk about wanting professional development in this area, in leadership and communication, is having a peer support network where they can share ideas and talk through things together and again, in a safe space. That's something that's really important. And that's difficult. If you just go to a one-day workshop, you can get some really great information, but then you might make some connections, but you're kind of then done for the day. So I thought having an opportunity to, one, be online, because we kind of have to be right now, but also creating a space for that peer network would be so valuable for people. So with the Courageous Leaders Academy that is launching next week, we will have both. So there will be live trainings once a week with me over the 6 weeks and live Q&A. And we also will have a peer support network. So you can have that space to connect with people and talk through things in a safe way. It is valued at $5,000, and it's normally $2,000. But because of everybody having financial hardship right now, or a lot of people, it's been priced at $1,000. But as to celebrate this launch, because I'm very excited about this launch, to celebrate it, until midnight tomorrow night, it's only $500, which I know only, but that is a hugely discounted price. And I'm really excited to be able to kind of celebrate this launch and offer it at such a discounted rate. So it's only $500. I will have the link to this in the show notes, and you can also find all the information at SLR Leadership Consulting. And if you go there between now and midnight tomorrow night, you can get it for the $500 rate. But I'm really excited that, so I have, like I said, I have 3 giveaways for today instead of just the 2. So one is an Amazon gift card, a $25 Amazon gift card, because Amazon, and we have to order pretty much everything online, right? But I'm also giving away 2 scholarships to the Courageous Leaders Academy that will be starting next week. So 2 full scholarships. I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm just wanting to really share this with people. So I'm going to have 2 scholarships. So if you are still here and hanging around, I can see the numbers, but I can't tell who all is here. If you're still here, I have a random number generator. I have random numbers. Give me a yes or a thumbs up or something in the chat so I know you're still here. And I'll give just a couple seconds for people to do that. And then I will announce, based upon the random numbers, the 3 people who the person who's getting the Amazon gift card, and then the 2 scholarships. And what I'll do is I will message you after this is over and get your email address, and we can connect to get you the details so that you have that information. So I'm going to give a couple seconds here for people to say, hey, thumbs up, something, just to let me know you're still here. And then we will pick our apply the numbers. People are being, oh, they're coming in. Okay, I was gonna say people are being shy because I can see there's more people here than, than people who have given me some kind of response. All right, wait one more second here. Okay, so for the Amazon gift card, that was number, let me see if we have enough of the responses. Let's see, that was number 8. So that is, let me count. That is our most recent thing. So that would be, and the other 7, which is Bill Nixon. So those are our winners. So I will message you 3 after this session and get your email addresses so that then we can connect and I can get you the details for what you need. Again, thank you all so much. And for anybody else who's interested in the Academy and or anything else when it comes to the consulting piece, please feel free to check out the website, SLR Leadership Consulting, and to come back every Tuesday and Friday. The first video this week will be on Friday, and come back every Tuesday and Friday for new videos and content. And be well and be courageous. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.